Jatkuu oikein, Elia tarkka.
That collision with a roadside rock removed his front left wheel. That was the end of his day and any chance of his first podium finish. Rocks and deep ruts exposed after the first run are one of the main hazards in these repeated stages. Chris Hankinson was another to suffer when his Subaru was bumped off the road by a rock on the racing line. Hankinson's Subaru teammate Peter Solberg was getting over the rocks and through the ruts, having to do this with a defective brake disc, which was hampering his challenge. Marcus Gronholm was still fighting his way through the stages, but with his damaged suspension, it was only a matter of time before he gave up the lead to Loeb. This happened on stage 6. Loeb and the Citroën C4 would take a lead of 22.6 seconds into the second day. It would be a tall order for Gronholm to get back on terms with the Frenchman. He tried, but again he could not quite tame these stages. On stage 8 he lost his bumper, and with it went his spare wheel. And with one of his tyres damaged, he had to nurse his car through this and the following stage to service. Loeb's lead was now in excess of 40 seconds. He was in control. More good news for Citroën was the improvement of Dani Sordo. He'd been down in 10th on day 1, but had been picking off his rivals one by one and was now closing on Henning Solberg, who was 4th. Solberg in the Ford Focus had been holding it together very nicely. But this spin on stage 12, the last of day 2, would hand 4th place to Sordo. Having another steady rally was Mikko Hirvonen, who'd watched some of the early pace setters fall down and now held 3rd place, the position he'd made his own on the gravel so far this season. On to the final day. All Marcus Gronholm could do was try and put some pressure on Loeb, but it was he who made a mistake when he overshot this junction, the opening stage. And here's Loeb on the same stage. That collision was quickly followed by another. His pace notes were a bit too quick for that right-hander. That double impact had damaged his steering. And this tight, narrow stage was no place to have faulty steering. A few kilometres later, he was off the road. A real collector's item, this one, a Loeb retirement. And this would be his 2nd no score of the season.
When I went in the corner, I slid a bit too much, hit a bit the ditch with the rear, but it's put me the front also in the ditch, and then it was a stone, and I broke the something on the steering. Then I continued 3 kilometers. The car was just going, but not so good, and then suddenly it broke completely, so I had to stop.
Gronholm now had 5 stages and 44 kilometres between him and an unlikely but vital victory. As well as the 10 points which would give him and co-driver Timo Rautiainen back the championship lead, this would also be Marcus's 27th WRC victory, taking him ahead of Carlos Sainz in the all-time standings. He was still behind Loeb on that list, but more importantly, today he was number 1. Yeah! Team director Malcolm Wilson was probably as surprised as anyone to be celebrating victory here.
Marcus, it end of Rally Sardinia. It's a win, and probably more importantly, that's 10 points.
Yeah, it's very good now to take the 10 points, and so when Seb scored 0, so that's very good.
The one bright spot for Citroën was Dani Sordo's 3rd place. But Gronholm's win put him 7 points ahead of Loeb in the Drivers' Championship, while Mikko Hirvonen's 2nd place saw him move to just 4 points behind the Citroën driver. And in the Manufacturers' Championship, Ford opened up a lead of 21 points over Citroën. Sardinia had done plenty of damage to cars and reputations, and there would be no let-up in Greece's Acropolis Rally. The man with the biggest reputation is Sebastian Loeb. After throwing away victory and the championship lead in Sardinia, he wants to prove that he is still number one. But as early as stage 2, he made a mistake, which cost him a few seconds, left him down in 6th. Already, Marcus Gronholm was sensing an opportunity to score another victory over the Citroën driver, and it was he who led after this stage. The Finn was looking much more confident than earlier in the season. Also looking in better shape were the Subarus of Petter Solberg and Chris Hankinson. They had gone with harder compound tyres than the rest of the field, and they used these to great effect as the first morning went on to overhaul Gronholm and return to the first service in first and second, with Atkinson in the lead. But on the afternoon stages, some of the old handling problems returned, which would allow Marcus Gronholm to return to the top spot with a lead of 8.3 seconds. Loeb had also closed up on the Subarus, and significantly he was now less than 10 seconds off the lead. Indeed, the top 6, which was completed by Mikko Hirvonen and Danny Sordo, recovered by less than 11 seconds. But day 2 was certain to spread the field out, with 2 runs through the 48-kilometre Aji Theodori stage, the longest of the season. Mikko Hirvonen was the first to feel its bite, although it was a late pace note rather than the conditions that sent him off the road at 150 kilometres an hour. He was very lucky to avoid those trees, and miraculously, he made it back onto the stage with just the annoyance of a shattered windscreen to deal with. Chris Hankinson was not so lucky. He suffered 2 punctures, and with nothing left of his front right tyre by the end of the stage, his chance of a podium finish had gone. But his teammate Petter Solberg was very much better and was holding off Loeb in what was now the race for second place. Marcus Gronholm had extended his lead in this stage, the 10th, but 2 stages later he came close to ruining all his hard work when he overshot at this right-hander. Danny Sordo was another having problems here. His gearbox had failed, a similar problem to what he experienced in Argentina. His subsequent retirement was not helping Citroën's attempts to catch Ford in the Manufacturers' Championship. On to stage 14, the second run through Aji Theodori, and if the first pass had been relatively kind on the cars, it was not true of the repeat. Mikko Hirvonen, who was now 4th, kept it on the road this time, but had destroyed his front right tyre. Both Chris Atkinson and Petter Solberg had damaged a damper, but Solberg was still holding on to second, and Sebastian Loeb was also in trouble with his tyres. He had to travel the last 8 kilometres with 2 punctures. The front left looked pretty bad, but the front right was completely gone. But again, one man who was problem-free through this toughest of stages was Marcus Gronholm. He was fastest, and his lead was now over 30 seconds. Petter Solberg's damper problems would be the decisive factor in the dispute over second place. The time he lost over the remaining stages of day 2 allowed Sebastian Loeb to establish himself in that position. Nobody was taking any risks on the final day. Marcus Gronholm was just hoping that the gods would be kind to him and keep his Ford Focus free from damage or mechanical problems. The Focus had won the Acropolis in 5 of the last 7 years, including Gronholm's victory last year, and Marcus and co-driver Timo Rautiainen were about to make it 6. For good measure, the Finnish duo got the better of Loeb and Eleanor in the Super Special that ended the rally, and this was also Ford's 60th WRC win. This was a great achievement for the Ford team. Malcolm Wilson and Christian Loriot, the man who designed the Focus World Rally car, were overcome with emotion. Behind the top three, Mikko Hirvonen held on to fourth, Henning Solberg took fifth, while Chris Hankinson fought his way back to sixth. But the headline was that for the second rally running, Gronholm had got the better of Sebastian Loeb.
What are you going to be doing over the summer break? What are you going to be concentrating on? Are you going to be working a lot on the car?
No, we have few tests, and then we have also quite a good holiday period, so I'm happy for that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Marcus Gronholm's win took him into the season break as championship leader, 9 points ahead of Sebastian Loeb. Hirvonen was still third, Danny Sordo fourth, while Peter Solberg had moved closer to them with his podium finish. Solberg's third place helped Subaru to move into third ahead of Stobart VK in the Manufacturers' Championship, but at the top BP Ford were beginning to stretch away. The credentials of Loeb, Sordo and the Citroën C4 would be tested to the full in the second half of the season if they were to challenge Ford here. The second half of the season got underway at Rally Finland. This gave Marcus Gronholm a great opportunity to increase his championship lead as he went for a record-equaling 7th win at his home event. Sebastian Loeb is one of the many non-Scandinavian greats not to win here. If he could overturn that statistic, it would be very timely. So everyone expected to see a Finn in a Ford Focus setting the pace. That was the case early on, but not the one we expected. At the end of stage 2, Jari-Matti Latvala in the Stobart VK-backed car was heading the standings. While Mikko Hirvonen was also ahead of his senior teammate in what was the first event for the 2007 version of the Focus. But Latvala's reign at the top was short-lived. On stage 3, the rubber seal on his window popped out, a freak occurrence which caused the 22-year-old to lose concentration. Soon after, he went off the road.
I lost my concentration, stalled the engine in this junction, a little bit too much heat, and kilometer after that, off the road, we went backwards to the ditch. Stupid mistake.
Latvala would eventually retire with damaged suspension later on day 1. Latvala was one of 11 Ford Focuses to start this event, a record for a single manufacturer, and the two leading cars were beginning to take control. Gronholm was fastest on stage 5 and took the lead, went on to win the 6 remaining stages on day 1. But on each occasion, Hirvonen had been just a few tenths behind and was just 4.4 seconds behind at the end of the day. But Loeb was another 20 seconds off the lead. It was apparent the C4 couldn't compete with the Focus on the Finnish gravel.
I try really hard and cannot do really better, so I try to continue, but I'm on the maximum.
The big attraction on day 2 were the 2 runs through the Onimpoja stage. But Manfred Stoll and Ilkka Minor never made it that far. They rolled their OMV Citroën on stage 13. Mikko Hirvonen was still on 4 wheels, but only just. He was giving it everything through Onimpoja, but perhaps he was giving a bit too much.
Well, there was many big moments. I was pushing a little bit too hard, and it wasn't the perfect stage, but quite scary. Bloody hell.
Britain's Guy Wilkes in one of those 11 Focuses was another giving himself a few scares. He took this jump way too fast, but got away with it. Gronholm, though, was looking much smoother. His experience was beginning to tell. He was fastest both times through Onimpoja, and by the end of the day, his lead was over 20 seconds. Loeb had started the day with a fastest stage time, but that was as good as it got for him. He was still a distant third, a minute behind Gronholm. Chris Hankinson was going well in fourth. His Subaru teammate Petter Solberg had been as high as fifth, but still frustrated by his car's handling, he retired on day 2 to allow the team more time to analyse those problems before the next event in Germany. Solberg's retirement allowed his brother Henning in the Ford Focus to move up to 5th. Day 3 was made up of just 3 stages, and these presented no problem to Marcus Gronholm. He completed the stages 24.2 seconds ahead of Hirvonen, equaling Hannu Mikkola's record of 7 Rally Finland wins.
I am very happy, yes. I mean, when I was private driver in 90s, I could never believe that I can win 7 times here.
What is more important today, stood here now, the 7th win or the 10 points off Sebastian?
I would say both. It's nice to have the 10 points now. We are going into a very difficult rally in Germany, so now I'm looking forward to take the title this year.
Further back, Chevy Ponce finished 6th on his debut for Subaru, while Irmo Arber and Mats Osberg in 7th and 8th posted their best ever WRC finishes. But it was mission accomplished for Marcus Gronholm, 10 more championship points, and with Loeb in 3rd, his lead in the driver's standings increased to 13. Gronholm's performance, added to Hirvonen's 2nd place, also meant that Ford moved to 40 points ahead of Citroën in the Manufacturers' Championship. While Marcus Gronholm has ruled in Finland in recent years, Sebastian Loeb has been equally dominant in Rally Deutschland, winning it in each of the 5 years since it was introduced into the WRC calendar in 2002. Thus, it was essential he made it 6 to re-establish his claim for the driver's title. And on the first morning, he looked to be on his way as he took the lead. In the race for the Drivers' Championship, it would be essential that Danny Sordo could challenge and hopefully beat Marcus Gronholm on tarmac, and so far he was keeping his part of the bargain. But Citroën also had another card to play. Francois Duvall, whose only outing so far this season was in a Skoda Fabia in Greece, had returned driving a Citroën Zara in the OMV colours, and it was he who was 2nd to Loeb, with Sordo 3rd. Duvall had been Loeb's teammate at Citroën in 2005, a difficult season which saw him temporarily replaced by Carlos Sainz after a number of offs, before he returned to win in Australia. But now, without a works drive, he had some scores to settle. On the afternoon stages, he'd opted for a slightly harder tyre compound than Loeb, and with the stages staying dry, it looked like Duvall had got it right. He took time off his former teammate on stages 4 and 5, and in stage 6, he took the lead. What a return for the Belgian driver.
Your leader at the end of day 1.
Yeah, sure. I am very happy. I am very surprised after 8 months stay on my home, working a lot, and I am very happy for today.
And this was turning into an uncomfortable day for Loeb. Gronholm had also gone for the harder tyre option and had moved up to 3rd ahead of Sordo. And any chance Sordo had of reclaiming 3rd went away in a pool of oil as he retired on stage 6. The cause, a problem with the cylinder block, that also put the Spaniard out of Rally Finland. Worrying times for Citroën, as they must have been wondering if Loeb's C4 was carrying the same fault. But everything looked sound as he entered day 2, even if he was in the unknown territory of not leading in Germany. And indeed, it was Francois Duvall who seemed to be suffering under the weight of leadership. This spin on stage 7 was followed by another mistake and a stall at the start of stage 8. He suddenly found himself down in 4th, over 25 seconds behind Loeb. Definitely not the start to the day he wanted. Loeb's start to day 2 was much better than the end to day 1. Not only had he recovered the lead, but he'd also seen Mikko Hirvonen move into the reckoning. He'd gone in front of Gronholm to take second place. No sign of any team orders in the Ford camp. But Gronholm soon reasserted his authority. He retook second and started to draw away. But he was still the best part of 30 seconds behind Loeb. Hirvonen was now battling for third with the resurgent Duvall. And the Belgian was still going for that podium. He would end the day just over 5 seconds ahead of the Finn. The constantly shifting leaderboard was a feature of this rally, as behind the top 4, Petter Solberg was yo-yoing up and down the classification. He eventually finished 6th, 1 place behind Jan Kopecky, who'd been swapping 5th position regularly with Tony Gardemeister until the Finn damaged a wheel on the final day. But 3rd place would become much clearer early on the final day, as Duvall was not hanging around. Helped by his tyre choice, he soon opened a gap on Hirvonen. 3rd place looked safe, but despite claiming he'd be happy with this, he was closing on Gronholm in 2nd. He won the first 4 stages of the day, and going into the final one, Gronholm was just 5.6 seconds ahead. And here is the Finn on the final stage. Look for the marshal waving on the left. He's warning that there's a cow loose on the stage. That caused Gronholm no problems. But at the next corner, Marcus admitted at the end he'd been distracted by the animal and had not listened to the next pace note. He limped to the end of the stage, eventually dropping to 4th. Duvall had not only put in the performance of the rally, but he also had provided an unexpected points bonus for Loeb, who, as expected, had taken his 6th successive win in Germany, and the Frenchman was grateful.
I think I can just say thank you to Mr. Francois Duvall, because he was pushing incredibly hard, and okay, we had just to drive carefully today, and no big risks.
That was a costly error for Gronholm, as he would be picking up just 5 points instead of 8 in the Drivers' Championship. So Loeb closed to 8 points behind Gronholm, while Hirvonen was now on 63. But with Sordo's retirement, Ford continued to draw away in the manufacturer's classification. After his last stage excursion in Germany, the pressure was back on Marcus Gronholm to deliver in New Zealand. A victory for Loeb on these gravel stages would be a big psychological blow to the Finn. But after Gronholm's demolition job on the Finnish gravel, there were doubts about the ability of Loeb's C4 on the loose. All in all, this was another tasty concoction. But early on, everything looked clear-cut. Gronholm was first on the road, normally a disadvantage on the loose New Zealand gravel, but some overnight rain, which helped hold the surface together, plus a superior tyre choice, saw him take the lead on the first morning. And even when Loeb gained parity in the tyre department, he could only claw back a few tenths on the afternoon stages. At the end of day 1, Gronholm's lead was a level 13 seconds. But from then on, nothing was so straightforward, and what developed was one of the greatest duels in WRC history. Stage 6, the first of the second day, Loeb on a harder tyre compound took 3.1 seconds off Gronholm. But with some dampness in the ground on stage 7, Gronholm restored his lead, plus a few extra seconds. Stage 8 was bone dry, and Loeb took a chunk out of Gronholm's lead, reducing it to just 3.6 seconds.
Marcus is a bit too soft, like Javonen, so it's the opposite from yesterday morning.
At service, there was a lot to ponder. Tyre choice had already played a big part, and with the weather still changeable, and with more long abrasive stages to come, the rally could still be won or lost on these decisions. Loeb had again gone for a slightly harder option than Gronholm and shaved 3/10 off the Finns' lead on stage 10. On to stage 11, the last of the day. That was the time Gronholm had to beat to keep the lead, 17 minutes 3.5 seconds, but Gronholm had suffered a puncture in the stage. And he was outside. Loeb would go into the final day with a lead of just 1.7 seconds.
At some point of the stage I hit the front and the car started to shake, but the moves was working, but after that I have to slow down, and the split came, and that I was 3 after all immediately.
Exciting stuff at the top, and there was plenty to look at down the field. Mikko Hirvonen in the Ford Focus was on his own in third. But behind him, Chris Hankinson and Jari-Matti Lamvola were involved in another tense battle for fourth. While the slippery New Zealand gravel was taking its toll, Maverick Stoll slid off the road on stage 4. Another disappointing rally for the Austrian driver. And Henning Solberg was also made to pay for a mistake on stage 8. While Chevy Ponce definitely had a rally to forget. He went off and into the foliage on stage 4. And worse was to follow on day 2. Spectacular stuff, but this was all merely a sideshow to the pulsating battle up front, and the best was still to come. Stage 12 was little more than 5 kilometres long, but that was enough for Gronholm to overturn Loeb's advantage. But on stage 13, Loeb went back into the lead by half a second and extended the gap to 2.9 on stage 14. However, the next 2 stages belonged to Gronholm as he reduced the lead to 2.3 seconds on stage 15 and then to just 2/10 on 16. With the last stage, the 3-kilometre Mystery Creek Sprint, stage 17, the classic Vanga Coast could decide it. And here is Loeb defending those 2/10 of a second.
Sur droite 120 bornes long, 70 mètres, droite 90 long. 80 mètres, gauche 120 moins, 50 mètres, gauche 120 moins 50 mètres, gauche 80 plus long.
Gronholm had retaken the lead, but only by 7/10 of a second. Rally New Zealand would be decided in front of thousands of spectators at Mystery Creek. Gronholm went first and set a time of 2 minutes 52.9, which meant that Loeb had to set a time of 2 minutes 52.2 or faster to win. And this is the Frenchman in the last sector of the stage. Watch that clock closely. Not quick enough. Gronholm had won the rally by just 3/10 of a second. He'd come out on top in this epic battle, and didn't he just know it?
What a fantastic battle.
Yeah, an incredible battle, but to lose for 0.3 seconds, I think, really okay.
And here's another perspective on this result. With Virtual Spectator, you can see that after 354 kilometres, that gap equates to just 7.6 metres. That's about 2.5 car lengths. Compare that to third place Mikko Hirvonen, over 1 minute and 40 seconds, and 2.6 kilometres behind. Outside the top three, Chris Hankinson beat Jari-Matti Latvala for fourth position, but the only statistic that really counted was those 0.3 of a second that separated Gronholm from Loeb. That extended Gronholm's lead in the Drivers' Championship by just 2 points, but it would feel like more to the Finn, although Loeb could console himself with the fact that his Citroën C4 had shown it could match the Focus on gravel. But in the Manufacturers' Championship, the Ford Focus was definitely on top. It was now seeming a matter of when, rather than if, the Ford Works team lifted this title. Spain's Rally Catalunya got underway with a remembrance service for WRC legend Colin Mcrae, who had died in a helicopter accident 3 weeks before. Tributes were led by Colin's former teammate and rival, Carlos Sainz.
He was amazing driver. He was really a champion. He has done so much for rallying, and we have such a good times all together. It's very difficult to describe, but only I can say is thank you to Colin, because we have such a good time. The rally family, we have such a good time. It was a fantastic, man.
Rally Catalunya marked the first of a double-header of tarmac rallies, where Sebastian Loeb hoped to reduce Marcus Gronholm's lead in the championship. But of all the tarmac rallies, it's on these flowing roads where Gronholm feels most at home, and it was he who was leading after the first stage. But his time out front would be short as Loeb went to the top of the classification on the following stage. And Gronholm also saw the second Citroën, piloted by the home nation's Dani Sordo, go ahead of him. Sordo finished second here last year, and it looked like he had designs on going one better when he took the lead on stage 4. But in the wet weather on the day's final 2 stages, Loeb's experience told as he regained the initiative. With all this rain about, tyre choice had become critical, and while the Citroën team were getting it right, Marcus Gronholm and his Ford team were getting it wrong. On stages 3 and 4, expecting rain, he'd taken a slip with cuts. The rain failing to materialise, he lost around 20 seconds. And on the final stage of the day, when it did rain, he was on a dry weather option. He ended the day over 50 seconds off the lead. A sign of what might have been with a better tyre choice came on day 2, where the Finn set 3 fastest stage times, but by then the damage was already done. But things could have been much worse for Gronholm as Spain saw another outing for Francois Duvall in the OMV Kronos Citroën Zara. But the man who had finished second in Germany lost his chance of a repeat of that result as early as stage 1, where he spun. However, the Belgian did recover to finish a very creditable 5th. Among those who would not be on the final leaderboard were Manfred Stoll, who added another off to his growing list this season. And Jan Kopecky was also off the road on the same stage, number 3. Chris Hankinson was also in trouble, clipping the bank here and up on 2 wheels, but he got away with this one and would recover to finish 8th. But the Citroëns were very much in control. Here's Dani Sordo on one of the fastest sections of this rally. He tops 200 kilometers an hour there. And Sordo had completed his primary task here, which was to beat Gronholm. The Ford man left to rue those day one tyre choices. And this is Sebastian Loeb on his way to first place, reducing Gronholm's lead by 4 points in the championship.
The car is going very well to tarmac rallies to come, so I hope we can do the same result another time, and hopefully we can take him some good points.
So a great day for Loeb and his Citroën team in the Spanish sun. And that was Citroën's second 1-2 of the season, the first being in Monte Carlo. Behind Gronholm, Mikko Kievonen came home in fourth. Loeb now 6 points behind Gronholm. Sordo moved on to 39 points, but was still a distant fourth. Citroën scoring 7 more points than Ford in Spain, but that still left them 39 points behind in the manufacturer's classification. With round 1 of the back-to-back tarmac rally safely in the bag, Sebastian Loeb looked in good shape to further reduce Gronholm's lead in the Drivers' Championship on the island of Corsica. But for 3 day one stages, it was Gronholm who was setting the pace. This is not high on his list of favourite events, but he was leading. And Loeb was not even second on his home rally, as his teammate Danny Sordo was outdoing the reigning world champion as well. Mikko Kievonen was seeking to top his 4th place finish in Spain. Here he is on stage 3. His pace note was too fast, and those Corsican roadside walls did not move. With a wheel missing, his day was over. He would restart, but not trouble the point-scoring positions. But Sebastian Loeb was, as expected, managing to weed his way through the Corsican tarmac mountain roads and was beginning to mount a comeback. On stage 4, he went ahead of Sordo into 4th, and on the following